Okay, good morning, everybody. We are starting Parashat Naso, and one of the most important things in Parashat Naso is that here we learn what it is to be united, it is to be together. As we said in the past hundreds of times, the idea is not to be the same. It's not to be the same identity as everybody, because everybody has his own identity. The idea is to be united. United, each one with his own talents, with its own abilities, with his own things that he got from God, and we all part of the whole. And here, our Parsha, we learn this an unbelievable way from the Nesi'im, from the princes of the tribes, the heads of the tribes, when they bring sacrifice, two kind of sacrifices. The one, ויביאו את קורבנם לפני השם, and they brought their sacrifice in front of God, שש עגלות צב, 6 wagons, and 12 בקר, and 12 oxes, עגלה, 1 wagon on 2 נשיאים, on 2 princes, on 2 presidents, whatever you call it, ושור אחד, and everybody brought an ox. So in other words, 2 brought a wagon, and each one of them brought an ox separately. So here what we learn is an unbelievable lesson. We see that there are, from one side, why do they bring only a wagon for 2? In other words, instead of bringing 12 wagons as a 12 tribes, they bring only 6. But from the other side, when you're talking about oxes, they bring 12 oxes. What's the idea behind it? What, are they stingy? Cannot be that they cannot allow themselves to bring more wagons? What's the problem? Why to bring 1 wagon for 2 tribes together? But that's exactly the idea. The idea is to show that though each one of them has got his own ox, his own ideas, his own talent, his own things, they are together carrying 1 wagon. The same thing is in marriage. When we in marriage, we have a man, a female, and a man, and they get together. Each one of them's got different ideas and different things, but as long as they go in the right direction, in the same direction, they carrying the wagon together. The wagon of marriage, they carrying it together in one direction. It doesn't matter that each one of them is got something else, because as we say, tovim hashtayim min ha'echad, the 2 are better from 1. But when are they better than from 1? When they are together, not one against another, not when you give up. This is one of the biggest mistakes that sometimes when you come to the couple come to counsel, to have a counsel, to counsel them, well, what should they do? How should they behave? They have problem with the marriage. And normally the one of the things that you say to a couple before they get married and after they get married, and if they have problem, you have to learn to give up. And everybody thinks, wow, that's exactly the idea, to give up to the other side. But that's wrong. That's not the idea. Because when you give up, you feel you're missing something. But on the contrary, what you should do is to get together. When you get together, then you have a double power. You see, 1 minus 1 is 0, is nothing. But 1 plus 1 is 2. And the idea is, tovim hashtayim min ha'echad, the 2 are better than 1 when they are going together. They unite their powers and they fulfill itself, each other with what the other is missing. In other words, this is the idea that the Nesi'im are bringing us here. They're showing us that though each one of them is an individual, but they together take a 1 wagon to show that they're going in the same direction and they can work together. And the wagon goes much quicker if it has 2 oxes than when it's got 1 ox. In other words, when you have your own ideas, if you have your own talents, when you have your own abilities, but you tie them together with your friend, though he is not exactly like you, he's different, then you carry the wagon in a much better way and in the right direction, and you get to your destination. From the other side, if each one of the oxen is going to be on the other side and pulling to his own side, the wagon is not going to move, and in the worst case, it's going to break because everybody is taking it to another side. In other words, this is a beautiful insight of what's the meaning of being together. Being together doesn't mean give up and give your own ideas and let them go and you take the ideas of the other. When we're talking about peace is something that can happen only if we share and we come to an agreement that everybody's going to be satisfied. Otherwise, there's not going to be peace. You win the war maybe, and you win something and you give up, but then when you have the first opportunity, you're going to try to get it back. And also in marriage, if you are giving up all the time, if you're giving, so you feel that you are missing your own identity because you gave it to your spouse, you gave it to the other side, the feeling is not good, and it's going to one day to pop out. But if we get together and you do things together, then we get to this beautiful point. If you remember, once I told you an interesting story of the Rav Adam Sinai, when a couple come to him to get an idea, they had a big row between them, and it was like they wanted to divorce. And when he asked them what's the problem is, so the husband says, I had a business, the business went kaput, went bankrupt, I lost the business, but then my wife came in, and really, I must say, she did a beautiful work, and we get up on our feet, and the business is good again. But now she's throwing out my friends, and I have to fight with friends that I grew up with. And I don't like this idea. Why is she's throwing out my friends? So then he asked the wife, what's happening? Why do you throw his friend out? You have to understand, the wife says. I've got a very good husband, but he doesn't know about business, nothing. And, he took our business and finished it. And I came in and I rescued the business. And now our business is going on. Now his friends are coming and they want to take stuff from us, and they didn't pay the last time. So I'm not going to give nobody merchandise without him paying. Doesn't work like this. Now, what do you say in this case? Is it possible that peace can be made here? That they can combine two things? Because each one wants a different thing. So how do you do this? The truth is, the Rav Adam said a lot of things about it, but the basic thing is very interesting. We take now this case and think, what is the problem? And nobody has to give up to the other side, and you will see in a minute how it works. Let's say, what is the husband? What's his problem? His problem is not, he doesn't want to give stuff to people without paying. Of course he wants, that's a business. But he wants to stay friend with them, and because they are friends, he gives him, because he doesn't want to pay now, okay, take it and you pay me later, whatever. From the other side, does the wife really want him to break up with his good friends? Of course not. She wants to get the money for the stuff she's selling. And that's the whole thing. Now, if we take those things together, those two things together, and let's approach to the friend, if he's a real friend. So he's going to ask him very simply, you see, we had problems and our business almost went under. And now, Baruch Hashem, we saved the business. And we cannot give stuff without getting the money, though you also owe us money from the last time. So if you really understand it, you have to understand it's impossible for us to give you anything if you don't pay, because then we will go down again. Now, if it's a real friend, what's going to happen? He says, I understand, sorry, I didn't know that situation was so bad, I'll try and find money to pay you back. And if he's not a real friend, who needs it? So now here, look what we did. We took those two ideas and put them together. So the husband stays friend with his friends because he explains to them the problem. And the wife doesn't let nobody take stuff without paying. So in other words, together they built a business. Together to take your idea with her idea, both ideas, and try and work out how we're not giving up to each other, but we're building something together. This is like only a sample, but in life we always know if we take one power and head it to another power, we have double power. And by the way, it's not double power, it's much more, because sometimes when you do this combination, it works much better than taking 1 + 1. It's not 1 + 1. 2 = 2. It's much more. And think about it, and you want to realize how brilliant is this idea. In other words, you don't give up in relationship. You add up. You add up. That's what you do. You take your ideas with her ideas with your ideas, and you take everything together, and then you build a beautiful thing. This is in business, in life, with friends, with wife, with husband, with family, with everybody. And of course, also from the spiritual way. And this is what the presidents here, what the princes, the Nesi'im wanted to teach us. An unbelievable lesson. But it doesn't end with this lesson. Because then, after they did this, look what's happening now. And the presidents bring the sacrifices for celebrating the beginning of the Chanukah of the Mizbeach. Anyway, look what's happening here. And the first one is Nachshon ben Aminadab, Nachshon, the son of Aminadab, Lemate Yehuda, from the tribe of Yehuda. What is a sacrifice? I'm not going to translate it because it's all those objects that he gives for the sacrifice, and the idea is not the translation of what it is, and the idea is what's happening later on. מזרק אחד כסף, 70 שקל בשקל הקודש, שניהם מלאים סולת גבולה בשמן למנחה, כף אחת 10 זהב מן הקטורת, פר אחד בן בקר, עיל אחד, כבש אחד וסתרו לעולה, סיר עזים אחד לחטאת, ולזבח השלמים בקר 2, מלאים 5, תולים 5, כבשים לשנה 5, זה קורבן נחשון בן עמינדב. And if we look here, we have here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 psukim about the sacrifice that this prince is bringing, this president is bringing, this Nasi bringing. And then, Vayom HaSheni, what's happening? Ikriv Netanel ben Tzuar. Netanel, the son of Tzuar, the president of Yisachar, the tribe of Yisachar, Ikriv et Korbanu. And what is his sacrifice? I'm not going to read on. The idea is very simple. 12 times, the Torah is telling us the sacrifice that the president, the Nasiim are bringing, and it's exactly the same 5 psukim again and again and again and again. And the question is, the Torah, it is so particular about every letter, every sign. Here, 12 times the same thing? The Torah could have said very simply, and this is the sacrifice that the Nesi'im brought. They brought 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then give the list of all the Nesi'im because it's exactly the same. So why is the Torah telling us again and again and again the same story, the same psukim? The Torah wants to show us the power of being together, the power of togetherness, the power of being united, to the level that God says, you had an unbelievable idea. And it reminds me, in Antwerp, when they do a kiddush or a function, especially the kiddushim, that's what we're talking about, they were going over the top. Kiddush on Shabbos, what they used to do in shul, it's like sometimes more than a wedding, and everybody's showing off and bringing more and more. One of the rabbis, from the Hasidim, I don't remember which one it was, one day came to his congregation and said, from this day on, what you bring for a kiddush is schmaltz herring, leikach, this cake, and banana liquor, and those crackers. That's it. So everybody says, well, Rabbi, that's not a kiddush. A proper kiddush should bring this and that and that. Says somebody who doesn't like the idea, here is the door, you can go out. In my congregation, that's the way it's going to be. What was the idea? The idea was very simple. You know, not everybody could allow himself to do what those unbelievable kiddushim. And some people, in order not to shame themselves, they used to take a loan in order to bring a kiddush, a proper kiddush, like everybody else brings. And it made people go into debt for a kiddush. So the rabbi says, that's it. And by the way, also the rich people that were shouting in the beginning, later on they were quite satisfied. They don't need to bring so much, because the whole half of the idea was showing off to the others that I'm great, I'm bigger, I know to do a kiddush better than you. But now, when everybody was equal, everybody was rested. Baruch Hashem, especially, of course, those poor people that didn't have the money for all those brilliant kiddushim. And this is exactly what we see here. There was a rich tribe, maybe a bigger tribe, a smaller tribe, a poorer tribe, but Netanel ben Tzuah, he came in with an idea. He says, let's all of us show God that we are equal, that nobody is better than the other, and bring exactly the same sacrifice, identical sacrifice. And everybody agreed. What a brilliant idea. God saw this, and he said, you know what? If this is the case, you see what I'm doing now. First of all, the Torah is going to write 12 times this sacrifice, though it's exactly the same 5 psukim again and again and again. And also, normally, when you think a private sacrifice and not a public sacrifice, you're not allowed to bring it on Shabbos. And this is like a private sacrifice from the president, from the Nasi. But here, he gave them Shabbos. Also, another interesting point. Moshe Rabbeinu didn't know exactly what to do with it. He says, what do I do now with all those sacrifices? I haven't been told to bring this. Do I sacrifice them all in one day? Which is, of course, possible. But then God says, no. Each one is going to have his own day, bringing his own sacrifice. So everybody is going to be having this unbelievable day that only he brings the sacrifice to God. What a beautiful thing. So each one of the tribes, instead of bringing all those beautiful sacrifices in one go, God says, no, not enough. I'm going to write each one of them again and again. Each one of you is going to get a special day. And also Shabbos. Though the Shabbos normally is a public sacrifice and not a personal sacrifice. So the Torah is teaching us this unbelievable lesson. And how much do we have to learn from this? The way, unfortunately, we are acting today. We just now received the Torah. You know, a few years ago, I wrote about climbing the Everest. And climbing the Everest and comparing this to the Everest mountain, to climbing spiritually the Mount of Sinai, where we got the Torah yesterday. You know what a big difference there is. A friend of mine sent me a few details about climbing the Everest. In order to climb the Everest, you need to have long preparations. I think a few months you have to prepare yourself to, first of all, to, of course, train yourself to do this climbing. It's not easy. And you need special equipment, and it's so much preparation and money. And then you get to this camp and you start climbing. And then you have this point, which they call it the point of no return. Now you have 3 days to climb, to get to the top of the mountain. And there is a place where you're not allowed to be more than 24 hours, if I remember right, because otherwise you're not going to survive. And one of the things when you climb this mountain is, at a certain point, you don't care about nobody else but yourself, because the question is very simple. I want to get to the top of the mountain, even if it means that I'm going to step on corpse. Why? Because otherwise I can be the corpse, or I'm not going to succeed in getting to the top. And the whole idea is to get to the top. So in other words, at a certain point, you don't care about nobody. And if somebody needs help, you don't even stop to help him, because it's you or him, or in other words, sometimes it's you climbing to the top or not climbing to the top. And you have to understand, this is a trial, once in your lifetime. You're not going to do it again. So it's either you do it now or you don't do it anymore, because it's so much money involved and so much preparation. Anyway, this guy from Israel, which is named, let me see, maybe I'll find it here. Nadav ben Yehuda, 24 of age. He decided to climb the Everest. He did all the preparation, all the things, and he gets to the point that they get to the place where it's the day of the top, the day of the peak. That's the day that you are going to climb after 3 months of staying there and doing what you're doing. This is one day that you have to get to the top. And at a certain point, you disconnect yourself from your friends, because if somebody falls, you're going to drag everybody with him. And you climb alone. At a certain point, his friend that was climbing with him, and after they disconnected the rope, he disappears, goes upwards. And on the way, he passes 2 corpses. And you have to understand, the corpses there, they look like they're sleeping, because it's very cold, it's freezing, it's unbelievable freezing. And when you're getting to this point, it's impossible to try and help somebody else, because sometimes it's risking your life. So it's going on, and then he sees another cop inside one of the rocks, and is shaking the corpse in order to see if it's alive or something. And then he hears a small groan, and he realized that that's the Indian guy that he met a few days ago in the camp down before they went up. So the question now is, do I try to save this guy, which means that I'm risking my life and I'm not going to get to the top, not going to get to the peak of the mountain? And he decided, he's got a neshama, a Jewish neshama, he decided he's going to try and save this Indian guy. And he does it. And on the way, this guy is almost dead, and he is also risking his life. And I'm not going to go into more details, we understand the story. Then I looked a little more in order to find out about other people that climbed the Everest. And one of the people describes the Everest as the highest graveyard in the world and the highest junkyard in the world. He says the place is full with corpses that didn't succeed to get to the top or died on the top. And they all look like sleeping, because at that level, there are no animals, no birds, no nothing. So there's nothing that's going to eat them. Nothing can live at that place. And it's freezing. So they look like they're sleeping forever. Also, full of rubbish, full of dirt, full of bags, full of torn tents and flags and whatnot. Look like a real garbage yard. And as we said, I think the description is enough. This is climbing the Everest. And what is climbing Mount of Sinai? Mount of Sinai, when you climb up, when we did the Sfirat HaOmer, when we were climbing up to get the Torah, when we got to the peak point, it was all of us together. And on the contrary, not like in this story with the Everest, if you try to save a guy, you miss the point, you miss the top. Here, if you try and save a guy, if you save a guy, if you help him on the way to climb to receive the Torah, you are getting rewarded. You're getting even higher from the normal peak of the mountain of Sinai. In other words, here in the physical world, in this Everest mountain, the idea is me, and I don't care about others. I have to get to the top, but climbing to receive the Torah, it's me with everybody else. Because if everybody else is not there with me, I'm not going to get the Torah. That is not the idea. That's the idea. And how much do we have to learn this lesson? We received the Torah, Baruch Hashem. But at what level did we? And what are we going to do with it? Are we going to share it? Are we going to love each other? Are we going to understand the sacrifices that we learned about the president, how they bring a sacrifice? They brought 12 identical sacrifices to show that they are united, they are together. Nobody is more than the other. Though there were the tribes of Judah, which is the top tribe, and the tribe of Dan, this is the lowest tribe, and etc., etc., etc. And also teaching us a lesson with the wagons, when one wagon is led by 2 oxes. So 2 presidents, 2 Nesi'im take each one of an ox, and they take it and put another one together and take one wagon. 2 take one wagon with each one with his own ox, to show us that to be united, to join power, this is what is leading the wagon in the right way. This is what is leading the wagon, to be let's say to get to the peak of the mountain, the spiritual mountain. This is the idea of Matan Torah. This is the idea of the sacrifice of the president. And this is the idea of us. Look around and see what's happening all around us. Unfortunately, terrible things are happening. We had the corona, and we still are not completely out of it. We had this disaster in Meron. Yesterday, there was a disaster in Jerusalem. And we have the war is going from in and from out. What is God trying to tell us? Think for yourself. What is it trying to tell us? Just now when we receive the Torah, God is trying to tell us a lot of things. But I think the main thing is to better ourselves, especially in the field of loving each other. Stop seeing the bad in the other. Try and see the good in the other. Try and join forces. Try and take your identity, your own identity, your personality, and take it together with the others. Let's unite together. Let's take all our powers and unite them together in order to take the wagon in the right direction, carrying it to the top, carrying it to the Geula Shlema, B'mera b'yameinu. Amen. All the best. Have a nice week.